So it's all to play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Good evening, Aston Villa fans. Good morning. Whatever time you're watching this, whatever time I put this out, good day to you, I suppose, is probably the best thing to say. And I'm actually quite happy to come to you guys tonight. I'm happy to come to you all every night, but I'm kind of more happy to come to you tonight because every so often when you follow a football team, a player gets linked to them, and it's just like a player that you've had kind of a fondness to, or that you've, whenever you've seen them, you've gone, oh, they do some things really, really nice, and you never really think that they're ever going to be linked to your club because, you're watching them in the Champions League, and with Aston Villa, we haven't been in the Champions League, or potentially haven't had that really kind of that draw for players that might be in the Champions League. And then next thing, all of a sudden, out of the blue, they get linked to you, and you go, oh my God, I really want this to be true. And this is one of them today. And I spoke about it on Twitter, but I'm going to butcher his name, and I really do apologize. Collomosse, from the Mail Online. I do apologize if I've butchered your name. Has linked Aston Villa today with Juventus's Uruguayan international midfielder Rodrigo Bentancur. And also this has been backed up and reported by Rob Dorset of Sky Sports today, mentioning that potentially it could be a £16 million fee for Rodrigo Bentancur. Now, I don't know whether this signing is going to happen, but it's just one that I've, that I kind of got excited about today because he's somebody that I mentioned in a throwaway comment last week, the week before, maybe the week before that, with regards to when we were discussing Yves Bissouma. And I mentioned him in a throwaway comment that if we could get him for less money than we pay for Bissouma, yeah, I'd get him in, or maybe someone like Nicolas Dominguez from Bologna as well, one of the two. And I was there. That would be fantastic. And next thing, lo and behold, he's reported. And I'm not saying I'm Mystic Neil or anything like that. As I say, a blind squirrel finds a nut every so often, but he's somebody that I've been keeping an eye on. And to give a small bit of an overview of him, he's somebody that's really hit the ground running at a very young age. He started his career with Boca Juniors, winning the league with Boca Juniors as a 17-year-old, and being entrusted to play for a Boca Juniors team. And he played for them. He played for them 10 times, or played 90 minutes, should I say 10 times. I'm going to go with 90 minutes piece here for him. Played 90 minutes for them 10 times as a 17-year-old when they won the league in 2007 and 2015. Then 2016, then Boca Juniors had a regression in form. They finished 10th in the league, which is very, very alien for a team like that. He only played 7 times. He only played 90 minutes 7 times. Then he comes back in more triumphant form as a 19-year-old to win the league, win the Premier Division with Boca Juniors in Argentina. As I say, as a 19-year-old, plays 20 games, and then he gets his big move to Europe, and he gets his move to Serie A in the form of Juventus. Now, most times when players, they get their move to Europe at such a young age from South America, takes them time to acclimatize in. He played 6 games in Juventus' Serie A, winning year of 2017, 2018. Then he really makes his mark in 2018-19, playing 90 minutes 22 times. Then 19-20, he wins the league again. So his first 3 years with Juventus, he's won the league each time as a 20, 21, and 22-year-old. With the last time in 2019 and 20, he played 90 minutes 24 times. And then Juventus kind of hit a slump last year, and that slump has continued into this year, where they only finished 4th last year and 5th this year. And that has kind of led, and we will see this when we look at the statistical piece, that has led to kind of discussions and deliberations and debates and arguments between Juventus fans, between Juventus fan boards, between Juventus podcasts, between Juventus managers even, as to where is his best position and is he all he's cracked up to be. And for me, I think that's really, really unfair. And I think it's unfair from a lot of positions because the old lady of Turin, or the Juventus as they are known. I think they've had it quite good for a long period of time. You know, they have really dominated Italy or Italian football for quite a period of time. And nobody was really asking any questions about Rodrigo Bentancur. When they were winning games, they were winning tournaments, they were winning leagues. And as soon as they started to falter, the flack came to a 23, 24-year-old kid. And a lot of that comes from the fact that he's been moved from pillar to post, from central midfield to defensive midfield, from defensive midfield to central midfield, and no real stability of play. And you know, even from year to year, system to system, manager to manager, because bear in mind that Juventus have had 3 different managers, albeit 4 different systems over the last 4 years. Started off with Allegri in 1819. 1920 was Maurizio Sarri. 2021 was Pirlo, and Allegri comes back in then for this year. So there's been a lot of turmoil, change, and yes, they were winning titles, you know, in some of those years, but there's been lack of stability, lack of coherence. And what do we know for young players is you need that stability. You need to grow within a system. And somebody like Bentancur has been, because he's able to do everything pretty well, he's been moved from pillar to post. Point in case, 2019, he plays 33 games as a traditional 8 central midfielder, only 10 games as a defensive midfielder. Fast forward to 2020, last year, where people said maybe he had his worst year as a Juventus player at 23 years of age, bear in mind. And he played 27 games as a defensive midfielder and 23 games as a central midfielder. Now, you know, that kind of chopping and changing and instability and uncertainty and where he's actually going to play for such a young player can have a detrimental effect. And I feel like I'm making excuses for him already, but you will see that what he's been asked to do year on year on year on year, a moment in a statistical analysis. But first of all, let's look at what he's been good at over the last 365 days. And when you kind of hear what I've been saying here and the fact that Juventus fans have been, I won't even say critical of him, because I think the reason that they've been critical of him so much so recently is the fact that he did drop a big clanger in a big game, the Champions League last 16 game against Porto. He basically passed the ball to a Porto player who stuck it in the back of the net, and it led to Juventus being on the back foot. Juventus lost by away goals eventually after the second leg, although his clanger was dropped in the first leg. But a lot of Juventus fans didn't really forgive him for that. But the team were disjointed at that period of time playing under Andrea Pirlo anyway. So a lot of the flack fell on certain scapegoats within the team, one of which happened to be Rodrigo Bentancur. I'm not going to stand here and say that I've watched him as much as a Juventus fan. I obviously haven't. I'm not a Serie A aficionado from the point of view that I will watch. Maybe I might watch one game a weekend. You know, I'll flick between the games sometimes the weekend, because sometimes they can be on a bit earlier or a bit later, you know, on TV. So they're a nice league to watch. But what I do have access to some streaming sites that have chopped up games and scouting footage of certain players, and I do have access to those, and I have watched him on those, and you know, his individual play, to me, I think will fit the Premier League, and some of the statistical pieces that we will look, I think will be able to fit into the Premier League as well, because he's very much an endeavour-based player, and he's able to pick a pass as well. And I'm very, very, very slow to say this, and I know this might bite me in the bum again, but you could liken him to a Jorginho type player, but obviously without the penalties. But anyway, let's look at some of the statistics that we have for him. And this might be a bit of a longer one, because I want to compare him to, not just compare him to Douglas Luiz, who's in our team at the moment. I also want to compare him to himself, because a lot of the debate that you're going to hear about somebody like Rodrigo Bentancur, if we do sign him, there will be a lot of noise out of Turin that, has he been all he's been cracked up to be? Has he regressed? But I think there's a lot of context that sometimes can be lost based on the numbers and based on just the limited piece that I've seen of him. So let's take a little look. So as I say, he's Uruguayan. He's 6 foot and 1/2 of an inch. Right-footed player. His age is 24. He won't be 25 until June. He's played quite a lot of games. Now, they are his appearances even as a substitute, you can see there. But the the minutes are correct, you know, so he's played quite a lot of minutes. As I say, he started his career in 2015 as a 17-year-old for Boca Juniors, and he's played quite a lot of time since then. Looking at his statistics, and you'll see why I kind of mentioned that he's fallen between two stools, and it's why he's kind of created debate and why the fans can't understand maybe why doesn't he play in X position over Y position, and you know it's kind of fallen into you're in one of two clans that he can't play defensive midfielder. Oh, he has to play central midfielder, or vice versa. And we can see there that his interceptions have him up in the top 9% of all midfielders in the last 365 days within Europe's top 5 leagues. His tackles bring him within the top 19%. So as you know, as far as interceptions and tackles go, they're really, really strong numbers. Probably gets dribbled past more than I would like, but then again, the Italian game is very much about getting the ball down and playing it, and not trying to play as many long balls as possible. And we can see that with the aerial duel success. His aerial duels are lower, but then again, you would expect his duel success to be higher. But you know, he isn't somebody who's going to throw himself guts and glory into winning the ball in the air. But saying that, the midfielders we have at the moment don't really do that anyway. They are a bit smaller than Rodrigo Bentancur. Looking at his pressure rate there as well, 22.42 pressures per game is phenomenal. Something that Steven Gerrard will absolutely love. Apologies. 86 in the 86 percentile, which puts him in the top 14% of all midfielders in the top 5 leagues in Europe. Of those pressures, though, his pressure success rate is under 30%, and that's something that he will need to up. While he does pressure quite an awful lot, the success rate that he has from those pressures is very middle of the road. Once again, as I say, we will take a look at where those pressures happen within the field, and that might give a better view as to where he might be utilized for this Steven Gerrard team and system. Looking at the fouls committed, I think is important, because if we are going to play him in a defensive midfielder position, he comes in middle of the road as well. Average Joe, 1.73 fouls per game. Now, looking at his passing statistics, we see a lot of high numbers there, and high percentile numbers, should I say, and that would lead you to think this guy should be playing in central midfield. And I think a lot of these numbers can be skewed slightly because he has played so much in central midfield, but also playing as a defensive midfielder. He has been that pivot player for Juventus too. We will see that in a future slide that we will see in a moment when we look into more advanced passing statistics for him with regards to where he plays them within the field and so on. But so he's had 62.66 pass attempts per 90 minutes. That puts him in the top 21% of midfielders. On those, he completes 54.84, which gives him an 87.5% completion rate, putting him in the top 20% of midfielders in the top 5 leagues in Europe. Progressive passing and progressive pass distance, I think, is always important to look at, so that we're not looking at somebody who's just that crab type player who plays 2 or 3 yard passes and doesn't like to pass the ball forward. He does play 5 progressive passes per game, and a progressive pass is a pass over 10 yards that goes on target, and he passes for up to 243 yards per game as well, which puts him in the top 32% of all midfielders. One real good point that stands out and leads me to believe that he's pretty much made for that pivot position for the Premier League is look at the amount of passes he makes under pressure. In the last 365 days, he's in the top 8% of midfielders for making passes under pressure, which comes in at just shy of 11 per game. So he's not faced by being closed down. He's able to play a ball, and he is a ball-playing midfielder, and he would be a ball-playing defensive midfielder if I got my hands on him and put him into Steven Gerrard's system. The shot-creating actions is something here that this is the one that's probably the most skewed metric that we can see here. And I'm not saying that defensive midfielders can't have shot creating actions, because they absolutely can. But this is why I think a lot of the Juventus fans will look at what he can do, and he can slide a pass, and he can play forward, and he can get down the side of the defenders and cross the ball in. He can do all that. And he has shown he can do that. And he's shown he can do that in some systems. But it might, for me, I don't think it's his best position, but some fans have seen him do it and they think that maybe he should be doing it more. And I think that's why falling between two stools for him over the last 3 to 4 seasons has really affected the perception of him and maybe what fans and sometimes even managers want from him, because Allegri, when he managed him the first time, has used him completely differently to how he's managed him this time. Yet he gave out about how Maurizio Sarri managed him in 2019, 2020, but now he's using him in a defensive midfielder position now, even though he was given it's really like he's been a hot topic of discussion in Juventus, in and around Juventus circles. And I really think that a lot of it is that he hasn't been given time to settle in a position because he's able to do both positions relatively well. When you look at his dribble and his dribble success rate over the last 365 days, he doesn't dribble an awful lot, but when he does dribble it, he's average at it as well. So his carrying of the ball isn't, I'm not going to say it's not the best, but you'll see in my points of note there that he's been asked to do a lot at a young age. And when you look back at his Boca Junior days, he came in there at 17 years of age and was asked to do a lot in a team that was winning a Premier Division. When he came to Europe, he's been asked to do a lot, changing systems, changing managers. As my first point of note says there, 4 systems in 4 seasons. Allegri has come back in, he's not playing exactly the same system as he did before. I say that he's versatile, but his versatility and the fact he can do a lot has been a big hindrance to him. And, chatter for a young player is something that they don't really want, and instability is something that they don't need. His versatility has come about by the instability that the club has seen with changing managers. And the fact that now I'm not going to say they're in a mini panic, but the fact that they've been so dominant for so long and then finishing 4th and currently being 5th in Serie A at the moment, they need to give him time to focus in a certain area and not consistently be discussing where his best position is. Make the decision and play him there. And for me, it's that defensive midfielder or regista role, I think is what they call it. I think that's how you pronounce it. And that's where my last piece here comes in for him on the points to note. He needs to specialize. He needs to be given a position that he can specialize in and play in, and he needs that stability. 2, 3, 4 years playing in that one position. When he comes into his prime, he's going to need to know where his best position is. And versatility is fine, but you might lose a talent in Rodrigo Bentancur if you do not pick a position for him, or at least get him to pick a position and just stick to it, because he does do an awful lot of things really, really well. So let's look and see how he plays in comparison to some of the players that we have. So as we can see here, here's how he compares to Douglas Luiz. Now, I will preface this once again. A lot of times I do this, it looks like I'm kind of painting out our players as being bad. Please do not take that as why I'm doing this. I know a lot of our players, the reason I do this and I get excited about certain players is I think that we can improve in certain areas in these players. Douglas Luiz is not a bad player. Bentancur is a better player than Douglas Luiz. And that's all that this is highlighting here. But what I think here is it goes against Douglas Luiz is the fact that he has been playing a defensive midfield position more over the last 365 days than Bentancur. And I'm not quite sure that Douglas Luiz should be a defensive midfielder. So the very thing that I've been just criticizing Juventus fan base over Rodrigo Bentancur, I am now going to do the exact same thing about Douglas Luiz. And as we see Douglas Luiz play a small bit more forward in the limited time that he's done it, he has played games pretty well. But it is certainly, and I'm not saying that he goes out of the team, but to have a different player who can do a small bit more at a higher level is very, very beneficial for us. And as we can see here, you look at interceptions, you look at tackles, you look at pressures, you look at pressure success rate, you look at aerial success duels, you look at fouls committed, he's committed less of them. You look at all the passing statistics, he comes out on top there. And you look at the dribbles, Douglas Luiz dribbles a small bit more. But my big point here is that if we are looking to improve the squad, we need to improve in certain areas. I don't think Douglas Luiz over time has been proven to be an absolute 100% 6. I think Bentancur in the Premier League can be a 6. If he brings those numbers from Serie A into Steven Gerrard's squad, and plays with those numbers in that sixth position, well, my God, is all I will say. My God. And that's why I think that he can stack up to being a Jorginho type player without the penalties, because he does things. He gets around the field and he just gets in the way very, very well. And when he gets the ball, he's able to play nice passes, play progressive passes as well. And he doesn't tend to fluff his lines that often, albeit he did a massive clanger in the last 16 of the Champions League last season. But look, it could happen to Bishop, as the saying goes. So let's take a little look here as well. I wanted to look at some advanced defensive statistics for him. So it's all well and good saying that he wins tackles in X area or Y area, but I wanted to see how he compares to Douglas Luiz. It's all well and good to say that he wins tackles and interceptions and pressures, but I wanted to see how he stacks up to Douglas Luiz in certain areas of the field. And this will probably show you why Bentancur has, why he's been utilized all around the field. And for my money, I can't understand why Juventus and Juventus fans are giving out about him an awful lot. Because when we look at it here, if you look at the tackles that he makes the same amount of tackles, exactly the same amount of tackles per 90 as Douglas Luiz, coming in the top 38% of midfielders in Europe. When he makes tackles in that midfield third, that third where we need to stop attacks a bit more as an Aston Villa football team, he comes in the top 14%. Douglas Luiz doesn't. He comes in the top 55%. So it's quite different, and that's a quite a different statistic. And when Bentancur does go forward, he even still makes tackles up there as well. So he can tackle relatively anywhere in the field. Where you put him, he's a good tackler. He's a good pressure of the ball. Once again, when you look at it here, over the last 365 days, he's been asked to play in lots of different positions, 6 and 8. And when we look at it here, that's why I think he can fit into the Steven Gerrard system, because he would be played more as a 6 and he would be given more of freedom to tackle and pressure a small bit more. But yes, Douglas Luiz has pressured a bit more, not an awful lot more in the defensive third. But then when you look at pressuring in the midfield third and the attacking third, he just gets around the field that small bit more. I completely understand that could be systemic and it could be based on the roles they're told to play within their team, but it's still really encouraging for somebody like Bentancur. Really encouraging, and for what the Premier League needs and for what type of player fits into the Premier League. When we look at the passing statistics, it's no competition. Once again, I completely understand he's been played in both positions, but he can still make those passes when he's played in those positions. So I'm saying that if we can take those passing statistics, marry them to the defensive statistics that we can see here, and play him as a 6 in Steven Gerrard's system, statistically, and based on the very small piece I've seen on him, I think that he will be just gravy in there. But look, who am I and what do I know? And that's why I'm so excited about him. And I want to just try and take a look here as well, because when we look at him, as I say, that it has been a conversation based with him over the last 4 years. He's been in different systems, 18-19, 19-20, 20-21, and 21-22. Allegri, Sarri, Pirlo, Allegri, different manager, different system, different pressure, different whatever, with Ronaldo, without Ronaldo, whatever you want to call it. Big players have left Juventus. Big players have come in and played into Juventus. It's been an ever-evolving team, coming from a team that won Serie A, I don't know how many times in the last 10 years. But what we can see here is that this current year, like we can see Allegri played him in 18-19. In that season in 18-19, he played 90 minutes 22 times. He is, and some of his statistics were the worst of his career when you look at them in this bracket and in this formatting. He was. It was in that year in 18-19, and then in 19-20 when people thought he played his absolute best. Last year he copped flack when he was playing under Pirlo, and you can see that he's passing statistics, his progressive passing, and the amount of touches, the amount of work he was being given to do. Going back to my point that he was given maybe too much work too early, he was given a lot of work to do under Sarri and under Pirlo, and that's when fans started saying, "Oh, I don't know, is he all he's cracked up to be?" In 21-22, we're looking where things have come he's a lot more interceptions. He's middle of the road in tackles. He's been dribbled past almost at the same rate as he had in previous years, and so on. Yes, his pressures have been down, but what he looks to be doing is specializing slightly, not as much as I would like, but you can see there that he's got a lot of middle of the road statistics, and even at that, Juventus fans aren't particularly happy with him this year either. But I still think that his fit is for the Premier League, and I think that at 24 years of age, this guy has a lot to offer within the Premier League. And it just goes to show, I think, here, looking at 18, 19, 19, 20, 2021, 2022, when the chips were down, he was asked to do an awful lot in 2021. His team didn't kick on and win the league again like they did in the previous years. He became a scapegoat. He did drop that clanger in the Champions League. I'm not running away from any of these things. And then it's just carried on into this season. Also, it doesn't really help that Allegri had, in 1920, had criticized Sarri for playing him in exposition, and then said if he was ever to come back and play him again. And he criticized Pirlo as well in 2021. Maybe it might have been 2021 when he criticized him, but he said, I won't play him in that position. And he has tended to kind of play him kind of in that position since he's got in there, in that defensive position. So I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure what, I suppose, what kind of politics, I suppose, are going on with him within the club. But it does look like, for 16 million, I would be definitely having a crack off him because his statistics, what I've seen from him, and his outlay and output over the last 4 years have been very impressive when you think about the workload he's been given at such a young age. As I say, I think all in all, he becomes that kind of deep line playmaker that the teams need within the Premier League. He grew, like, he's 24 now. He's kind of grown every year, although he's grown into his workload, should I say? Although I'm not sure that that he's best served having all that workload of touches. And when you bring him into this team, he probably won't. Yes, he'll be that pivot player, but we have Coutinho to progress the ball forward. We have Buendia to progress the ball forward. John McGinn will be in the team. Ramsey will be in the team. And if you specialize him at what he's been really good at, take that ball from the centre halves, distribute it well, distribute it forward well, hold your position, and use your dogged interception ability and your dogged tackling and your pressuring ability, then to really make the most out of yourself, free up the rest of the team. That, to me, is a really, really exciting prospect. So that's really it. That's 27 minutes on Rodrigo Bentancur. I don't know whether he will sign. I don't know whether I've gone over the top and will be absolutely, completely wrong about this player. But he's somebody that I never thought Aston Villa would be within an ass's roar of signing. And for me, I think it's exciting. I think it shows what the club is at this moment in time on the 22nd of January 2022. And I think that it is a sign of the times. And if we were to pull off a signing like this, I think that we would see the best of him in the Premier League with a bit of stability. And he would be somebody that I think would be a nice fit for what he does as well. We have also been linked with other players. I will be doing some more of these on those other players. As I say, whether we sign him or not, I don't know. But let's look out for this. Let's keep an eye on this transfer. And if we do sign him, we will be back to discuss it some more with some other people that may know a small bit more about him. So on that, guys, I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much to everybody for watching and for listening. If you guys can give it a thumbs up, I would really, really appreciate it. Helps the algorithm to kick this forward. Really helps the podcast and helps the channel here too. Appreciate everything you guys do. Here's to a great transfer window. Last couple of days of the 2022 winter transfer window here for Aston Villa Football Club. Steven Gerrard is going to get his men, or he's going to identify his men. Whether he gets them or not, should I say, is another thing. But here's hoping, and here's hoping to a very good end to the transfer window. See you soon as there's some news, and all that's left to say is up the Villa.